Hey everybody, it's Rosa with Game Nerdz, and today I'm going to teach you how to base coat your mini. Before we start base coating, be sure to check out my priming tutorial so we can get you up to speed on this lesson. So where do we start? Well, we've got lots of options for you. We have Citadel, we've got Army Painter, Vallejo, Duncan Rhodes. There's no shortage of options. It's very easy to get overwhelmed. But what matters here is you. You're unique, and so is paint. Finding which works best for you, your skill level, and your needs is really what it comes down to. In whatever paints that you intend to use for your minis, there's an important factor to keep in mind: pigment density, aka opacity. Acrylic base paint is way more opaque and less translucent, and the color is more concentrated. The color or colors you choose to create your foundation will impact the colors you pick later. It's kind of like when someone says they've curated a color aesthetic on their Instagram grid. It's easy to see the general color of their page. A page featuring plants will likely have green as its base color. Well, from there, a palette emerges in the pictures they've chosen. Those are like your layers or highlights, the dry brushes that'll come later. So if you're using Citadel paints, it does exactly what it says on the tin. Citadel paints have been pre-mixed with that opacity in mind. Now granted, you do still need to thin them, and that brings us up to speed with the other brands that we use that haven't been pre-formulated. Whatever you use to thin your paints, be it medium or water, etc., the thing to remember is that it keeps your coats looking smooth and cohesive. Paint that's not thinned out enough will look caked on and kind of streaky from the brush strokes. But paint that's thinned too much will turn into basically a wash or a glaze, and it won't cover your primer. So if your intention is to create a smooth scape of color, thin those paints. Some painters prefer 50-50 water to paint, and some find that their brand behaves better with something like 30-70 water to paint. A good base typically takes 2 to 3 layers. If you find it's taking 4 or 5 coats to get even coverage, try thinning your paint a bit more. Use droppers or pipettes. That's a great way to control those ratios. And who said middle school biology isn't good for something? Using a wet palette can be helpful. It keeps your paint from drying out while also providing a way to gradually thin them out with water. As for brushes, assuming you're painting an average size mini, look for those with labels like starter brush, base coating, multi-purpose, etc. Synthetic or natural brushes, which do you use? Well, generally synthetics are cheaper, they're easier to clean, and they work really well for acrylics, but they typically don't last long, especially if they aren't taken care of, and are prone to developing a little hook on the tip that's super annoying to paint with. Natural bristles will be more expensive, but they hold their shape well, and they're built to last. They're great for blending, and they release paint a bit more slowly. Lastly, when loading paint onto your brush, try to limit it about halfway up the bristles. Overloading your brush with paint will kill it so much faster. It's super important to let your paint dry between coats. Some specific techniques, like your wet blending or slap chop, actually benefit from not letting the paint dry. But for simple base coating, the paint performs best when you let each layer dry. And while we wait for that to dry, go clean your brushes. Let's get to base coating. So if you watched our priming video, you'll notice that we primed this little mini from my little scythe. And today I'm going to work on base coating his jacket. His jacket is green, so I'm going to base coat it with purple, a complementary color. So we have a base paint, and I'm thinning it out to change the opacity somewhat, that it's not so thick, but I also don't want to thin it out too much that I can see the gray poking out from under the purple. Brushstroke kind of matters a little bit more here than it would in priming. Generally, you want to pick one direction and stick with it. Also, if you're worried about getting paint on other areas of the model, you're worried about shaky hands or something, I know I am, you can tape off parts of the model that you don't want to get paint on. Painter's tape actually works pretty well. I've seen some people use putty. I love that because it just comes right off. And if I notice that I can see the gray a little too well underneath the purple, I just go back, load up my brush, go over it one more time. But it's important to keep them thin because I may want to go back over it a second time to build up a more robust color. So remember, this color is going to inform the color on top of it. Also, what's so great about thinning your base coat out is, see how dry it is already? Like that took almost no time. Now I can go back over it, lay down a second layer, and make sure I've got uniform coverage. And it took, what, 2 minutes? In 2 to 3 coats, you should have a great foundation. From here, we can move on to layers, but we'll get to that in the next video. So I showed off a lot of things in this video today. I'll put some links in the description below so you can get your own at GameNerdz.com. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap that notification bell so you don't miss out on my future tutorials. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Once again, my name is Rosa and I'll see you next time.